I grew up in a small rural town, the kind where everyone knows everyone, and where nothing bad ever really happens. We had one gas station, one church, and one tiny elementary school at the edge of the forest. The kind of place where rumors spread faster than the wind. In fourth grade, something happened that our town still doesn't talk about openly. It started the week we got a new substitute teacher. Our regular teacher, Mrs. Crawford, had suddenly fallen sick. On Monday morning, the principal introduced a tall man with thinning gray hair and a neatly pressed brown suit. "This is Mr. Hall," she said. "He'll be your substitute until Mrs. Crawford returns." At first glance, he seemed normal, polite, well-spoken, even friendly. But there was something in the way he looked at us. His eyes didn't seem to move right. They'd lock onto you just a little too long, like he was memorizing your face. When we said good morning, he smiled, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. It was like his mouth had learned the expression, but the rest of his face hadn't. He began class as usual, writing his name in big letters on the board. The sound of chalk scraping echoed strangely in the silent room. Then he said something that made my stomach twist. He looked at us and said, "By the end of this week, you'll all have learned something new, something you'll never forget." At the time, we just thought he meant a new lesson plan. The next day, when we entered class, the door was already locked from the inside. Mr. Hall opened it only after every student had arrived. He said it was for safety, because there had been reports of strangers near the school. Nobody questioned it, but it made us uneasy. During recess, when we wanted to leave, he'd unlock the door and stand by it, watching us go one by one, counting, whispering the numbers under his breath. That afternoon, I noticed he'd drawn strange marks in the margins of his notebook, little spirals and triangles overlapping in a circle. He caught me staring and quietly closed the notebook, his face expressionless. When the final bell rang, he didn't dismiss us right away. He just stared at the clock until it struck exactly 3:15, then said, "You can go." On Wednesday, he told us to draw our families. It seemed innocent enough, until I realized he was studying each picture very carefully. He asked questions that no teacher should ask. "Do your parents ever leave you alone? Where do you live, near the woods, or near town?" When he reached my desk, he pointed to the figure I drew of myself and asked, "Why didn't you draw your window?" I hadn't thought to. I told him I didn't know how. He leaned in and whispered, "It's the most important part of the house. That's where they come in." I didn't know what he meant, but I remember feeling cold all over. That night, my friend Aaron called me. He'd overheard the teachers in the staff room talking about a substitute teacher named Hall who had never signed in at the district office. There was no record of him. We laughed it off, thinking he must have misheard. But neither of us slept well. On Thursday morning, the atmosphere in class was tense. Mr. Hall seemed even stranger. His hands trembled slightly as he wrote on the board, and his voice had become softer, almost a whisper. At lunch, a teacher's aide walked in with the local newspaper. Erin grabbed it from her desk while she wasn't looking. The front page had an obituary section. There, in black and white, was a photo of a man who looked exactly like our substitute teacher. Mr. Jonathan Hall, beloved husband and teacher, passed away last Friday after a car accident on Route 9. We stared at the photo, then at each other. The paper was dated this week. When we returned to class, the room felt wrong. The lights flickered once, twice, then stayed dim. Mr. Hall stood perfectly still at the front of the room. He asked, "Did you learn something new today?" We didn't answer. Friday was supposed to be movie day. Instead, Mr. Hall told us to close our books. He said, "We're going to do something different. I want you to stay after class, all of you." The clock ticked. The sky outside turned gray, heavy with rain. When the final bell rang, nobody moved. He locked the door again. Then he walked slowly toward the windows and pulled the blinds down. The room grew dark except for the flicker of fluorescent lights above. He said, almost tenderly, "You've all been chosen to learn the final lesson." That's when the power went out. Someone screamed. Chairs scraped across the floor. I heard him whispering something, a chant, maybe, words none of us could understand. In the confusion, I felt my way to the back door. It was supposed to be locked, but when I turned the handle, it opened. I ran down the hall to the main office, crying and calling for help. When the principal came back with me and 2 other staff members, the classroom was empty. No students. No Mr. Hall. Just 22 small chairs arranged neatly in a circle around the teacher's desk. On the desk was that same spiral symbol, drawn in chalk, with one line missing, like it hadn't been completed yet. We found the other kids hiding in the supply closet. They said he'd walked around the circle, touching each child's head, whispering something, until the lights went out. Then he was just gone. Police searched the building, the woods, and the roads. No sign of him. But they did find an abandoned car in a ditch a few miles away, burned out, rusted, with a license plate registered to Jonathan Hall. The school closed for maintenance the following week and reopened a month later with new staff. No one ever mentioned Mr. Hall again. The principal told parents it was all a misunderstanding, but most of them quietly withdrew their kids the next year. I stayed in that town until high school. Every time I passed the old school building, I'd look at the classroom window, the one at the far end near the trees. Sometimes, when the sun was low, I'd swear I could see a tall figure standing behind the glass. Still wearing that brown suit. Still smiling that strange, empty smile. And every time I do, I remember his words from that first day. By the end of this week, you'll learn something you'll never forget. He was right.